Welcome back, so happy to see you again. And in today's video I want to talk about how you can reclaim your attention. Let's say when you're stuck scrolling social media, YouTube, TikTok or whatever, and focus on what you want instead. And I'm going to base this discussion primarily on my own experience, as I've been meditating for over 20 years now, and it takes 20 seconds for me to focus. But I also consulted these two books plus other research. So what is attention then? Out of all definitions, it basically boils down to our perception. If you pay attention to something, we zone out everything and just focus on one. And according to this book, our brain has three parts: reflective, reflexive, and archive. Reflective brain is where our attention resides, and it cannot multitask. So when we try to multitask, what we're really doing is switch rapidly. Let's say if you're working but checking email, quite detrimental for cognitive performance and even mental well-being, which you've probably heard about. But of course, with a reflexive brain, you can combine activities such as brushing your teeth while listening to this. But in terms of concentrating, we can only focus on one thing at a time, which brings us to the next point. Let's say that I want you to focus on one particular color here, let's say yellow. You will immediately notice this yellow shirt and maybe some yellow-orange light in the background. Now I want you to focus on green instead. And what pops up is this green plant over here. But the question is, where was green when you focused on yellow, right? And that's a feature of our brain too, that we are selecting one over another. Let's say if you're very hungry, it's very easy to pay attention to the food. And if you're a young average guy like me, you have to choose between a piece of trash or focusing on a girl instead, it's very easy choice. So attention, in other words, is nothing more than what we want right now. A choice that we decide, the priorities we face. But the problem is that if we are compulsory doing one particular activity, let's say scrolling TikTok for an example, sure, it can be very fun in the beginning, but after a while we feel this guilt that why are we doing this? We should not be doing this. But instead of putting it down, because we do not want this experience, we lose attention instead, because the attention is correlated to what we want at that moment. Remember back in school when you were forced to attend a boring lecture and you could not pay attention to anything that was said? You were zoning out and sort of being nowhere, which is what I'm talking about here. And I have a good experience of this, as I've been struggling with autism during my childhood. I was sort of living primarily in my virtual world with fictional fantasies and acted them out in my own head and stuff like that. Sure, it can be good for creativity and imagination, but it was totally debilitating when it comes to other important stuff like social interaction, building friendships, having body control and so forth. And in this beautiful paper, they prove that having this wandering, zoned out mind is correlated with more unhappiness. And on the other hand, if you totally focus on what you're doing and you do not indulge in negative thoughts or even positive thoughts, not right, but just fully engage in what you're doing, then you're maximally happy. But sometimes it's good to be unfocused too if you want to. In this book, for example, the author claims that our brains switch between central executive mode and mind-wandering mode. Even Theo Comprenole argues that we need to switch off our reflective brain in order to activate the archive brain, which stores our memories and learnings. So this is why I do stuff like long baths, long walks, meditation, stuff like that. With that said, that attention is a choice of what you want right now. Here, so you can reclaim it from wherever you want if you find yourself lost in thought or lost in scrolling. First of all, it's important to accept or like what you're doing right now in order to have the attention and the power to not do it. So what you can do is, whenever you find yourself doing a bad habit, tell yourself or think to yourself, okay, right now I'm doing this, I'm scrolling TikTok, I'm wasting my time, I know I should be doing something else, but right now I'm sitting here. When you internalize it to yourself, it becomes very obvious. Sometimes that's all you need in order to put it down and solve it. But more often than not, in some circumstances, it's not sufficient. So what you can do then is to pay attention to what will happen when you stop doing it. Negatively visualize the tensions and the dread and the feeling of discomfort and stuff like that. Because that's inevitable when we have spiked the dopamine up and then it's going right back down again. And what will happen is that because you anticipated this trough in whatever pleasure you want, then it becomes so much more manageable and you don't even need the stimulation that TikTok can provide. And in that case, it's very easy to switch to what you're doing once you have described it fully for yourself, or in some cases, being prepared for the negative sensations that can arise. And for a more permanent solution, there are a lot of talks about this attentional diet, dopamine detox, step away from your phone and stuff like that. You want to be able to craft your surroundings, let's say with people and videos and stuff like that, that serves you the best, and not serve necessarily anyone else primarily. So if you find yourself consuming negative influences, or at least not net positive, then you're better off cutting out. And I've experimented with this as well yesterday when I unsubscribed to many YouTube channels. And it's surprising that we don't even realize how much our attention has been allocated to these until we finally get them freed up. Okay, so while I was editing this, I realized that that's probably something YouTubers, like us in general, don't tell about. Maybe because we are part of a problem, I don't know, watch another video, and so forth. But especially between you and me, I want you to know that what's most important is that you being productive. Then watching my video is secondary. You can, of course, do that in order to encourage the best action. But other than that, always know what's best and do it. That's the thing I want to take away. Anyway, back to the video. But of course, one thing that is inevitable when it comes to these dopamine detoxes is more connection with boredom. Here you can use boredom as a kind of superpower, because what that does, it acts as some kind of a vacuum towards the activities you want to do. Suddenly this intimidating project doesn't feel as intimidating, but rather exciting, because you don't have any other options. But once again, to reclaim attention, just describe to yourself what you're doing at the moment, and if that's not enough, you pay attention to the potential negative experiences that occur, and then you're all good to go. As always, I'm interested to see what you thought about it. What are your tricks on handling these situations, from not having attention to getting back your attention? Until then, thank you so much for sticking around, and always remember that you are the most amazing human being alive.